So now we're going to talk about the Ableton Live preferences. And over here on the left-hand side, if you open up the preferences, we've got our different tabs. And each of these tabs shows us different parts of Ableton Live's preferences. And so the look and the feel is right here in the beginning. You can change a few things in here. I just keep mine set for mid-dark, but you can change different things in here. You can also change your follow behavior if it goes from page to page, the language, the warning signals, stuff like that. I can turn it back on so they all come back. I can hide my labels, stuff like that. Permanent scrub areas, yours is probably turned on. I like mine to be turned off. What that means is that in my clips here, a permanent scrub area is this area up here across the top, and if it's on, it's going to have my little speaker here, so I can start playing from that part right there. Or if I go over here, it's going to have my speaker up here. But I like to have it show my magnifying glass. I can get to my speaker a different way. What this basically does is it shows me if I've got anything playing, if I record some stuff in. Let's just go ahead and record some stuff in real quick. Oh wait, hold on a second. This got switched somehow. Let's do that again. I'm going to go ahead and record that again here. Okay, here we go. Boom. Okay, ready to go. Ready to record? We're going to record, okay? So I'm going to record a little bit in here just so I have something to play with here. Go and keep this one here. And this one over here.
That's really cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Okay.
That's really
cool. All right, so I got some stuff in here. I'm going to go ahead and hit this orange button. Anytime you record something into the arrangement view, you got to hit the orange button here. Boom. And now it shows up. And we can see all my little tracks are right here. There's my tracks where I started and stopped things. Now, going back to what we were talking about, the scrub area, if I go up here, I can play it from right over here by hitting that button right there. I can zoom in by clicking and dragging up and down when it's in my magnifying glass. And I can go over here.
That's really cool.
Okay, and you might say, Tony, that's a really cool feature that it does that, and I would agree with you, but with my scrub area off, I actually have more real estate to magnify stuff, to zoom things in and out, and if I want to get my scrubber back, I just hit the Shift key on my keyboard. So I get the Shift key, and I can play from that part of the song.
That's really cool.
So you can see you can jump around, and it jumps around in time. Okay, so you can do that, but I can hold down, I like to use my scrubber to be off, and I hold down Shift to get back to my scrubber there, so scrubber. So that's how I usually use that. The pen tablet mode, I never mess with pen tablet mode, so I guess it's if you're using like your iPad is like another screen or something like that, it works better. I don't use that. We can zoom the display. If I click on it, you can see it's making my display bigger. This is good for if you're on stage, so I can make it bigger and smaller. It's good for like if you're on stage or something like that. If you need to see more screen real estate or you need to see things bigger because you're like far away from stuff, but for working at home, I don't usually mess with that. If I have a big monitor and the text is really small on the monitor, I will change it. But for normal usage, I don't really change it. Auto assign track colors, yes, fine. Default track color, whatever. Clip color, track color, reduce automatic colors, yes. I don't like to have so many colors going on. I like to have less colors. Theme, like I said, is mid-dark. We can change this to different themes. Oh, it's so bright. It's so bright. Dark is, I think, a little bit too dark for my taste. Live 9, there's the Live 9 theme. And you can also change things up a little bit yourself by messing around with these different things here. I don't do that. I just keep it set to one of these because I don't really care what Ableton Live looks like that much. I just like it to be darker so it's easier on my eyes. Now let's go over here to our audio section. This is where we set up our playback engine and stuff like that. Our input, our output, things like that. So you've been learning about that with Pro Tools, and here it is in Ableton Live. Go to audio, input, the driver type is core audio, really don't change that. And your input device and your output device are different things. If you're using your headphones or your speakers or whatever, it's going to work differently for you. I've got mine set to MacBook Air speakers, but I'm also using a different device that feeds it into my headphones. So there you go. External microphone, there we go. There's the external microphone. Yeah, the dogs are not having fun today. I think Captain is grumpy because he hasn't eaten, and he doesn't want to eat because he doesn't like his diet food. Then we got the sample rate here. You can change the sample rate there. I'm just going to keep it at 44.1. High quality, just leave that on. Here's your buffer size, 128, 256, 512. Remember your buffer size, it's not different from Pro Tools. It's just you got to put it to whatever's working for your computer. So if you're having glitches and weird stuff, you got to put this to a higher number. If you're fine, keep it at a low number. If you're using a modern computer, like really new computer or whatever, I recommend just keeping this at 128. You can probably just keep it there and forget about it. You don't need to do any of this other stuff. Don't worry about this other stuff so much. If you want your driver error compensation to kind of offset for driver errors, you can. But again, unless you know what you're doing with that, don't touch it. It's not even something that I ever touch myself. Then you've got over here link, tempo, and MIDI. This stuff here is quite important, but you don't really need to mess with it too much. The show link toggle, remember that? We talked about that in the beginning. That's just up here on the left-hand side. No link, and then I click show, and it has a link in there. Start, stop, sync. You could keep that on or off, whatever you want to do. If you're not showing the link, it doesn't matter. That's only for if you're using the link stuff. So you've got that there. Show tempo follower toggle. What is this? Follow. It's for follow mode and stuff. This is pretty cool, but it's not something you really need to mess with in the beginning. It's basically for Ableton Live will follow any kind of here, come on. Ableton Live will follow any kind of like beat or something that's coming in from the outside world. So it's good for live stuff. I've got my dog here on my lap. She was like wanted to come and hang out with me. Hi, babes. Okay. For those of you who know Luna, here she is at home. Yep, the dog. She's gonna sit on my lap. She likes to be on my lap. There you go. So that's the show. Follow stuff. If you want to follow external things, you can, or you can have it come from any kind of like different things. But I don't really use this too much. There are occasions when I'll use it, so I'll turn it on. But for the most part, I just keep it hidden. Same thing with like this link here. MIDI, just general MIDI stuff. If you have any kind of things plugged in, it's going to show up here for control surfaces, and you can see I've had a lot of different things plugged in. If it has been plugged in at some point, it'll show up. Whoops. But it'll be grayed out on the right hand side. I don't need to show any of that stuff. And launch key mini, yeah. So I can go over here and just hit none for these. Push 2, I'm going to keep that because I do have that, and the launch control XL, I do have that as well. So I'm going to keep that and keep these set to none. Set to none. There we go. Cool. All right. Takeover mode. Now this is an important one. This is how your knobs and faders are going to take over the MIDI control. So for example, don't start barking. I think there was a dog barking outside, and she was like, "Oh, what's up?" Yeah. Oh, now Captain started barking. Ugh. Like I said, if one barks, the other one's going to start barking, and if the other one isn't barking, the other one's probably going to bark. Captain, stop barking. Yeah, Captain's barking. No, don't start barking, Bubs. Don't start barking. Don't start barking. Oh, that's a barking echo chamber. And Captain didn't used to bark, but Captain's gotten a lot worse at, he's better at barking, worse at barking, worse about barking. I don't know how you'd say that. So the takeover mode is pick up. Now what this means is that with your knobs, go ahead, get off my lap. The knob has like a certain point that it moves through, right? So let's take a look. Here, let me just show you what this means. Okay. So if I have, let's say I have my, where was it? Oh, here, the fader. Yeah, on the atmosphere, the filter here. I've got the filter here. And with the filter, if I assign this knob to this one here, you notice that it's not going to go through until it goes through it, and it's not going to move it. Now it's moving it. It wasn't moving it in the beginning, and that's because it's in a mode called Takeover Mode. I don't know if you can see my screen here. Sorry, my keyboard here. It was in a mode called Takeover Mode, and what that means is that if the knob is set to a position over here, it's not going to affect this at all. It doesn't start affecting until you roll through it, and when you roll through it, where is it? This one. If you roll through it, now it moves it. Okay, but it wasn't going to move it until it actually rolled through it. So let's go ahead and put it all the way up there. Let's go back into here. And let's set this to value scaling. What value scaling does is it scales it so it fits my thing. So if I move it with my knob, with here, and I move it, it scales it, the value. So if I go ahead and here, let's move this all the way up. Let's put this down like there. Now it's going to move it to be, what's the word? To be, like, it kind of moves it closer. It's like relative is the word I'm looking for. It's relative. And then the last one we can use is none. And none is just going to jump. And none is super annoying. So if I go ahead and solo this out, in my atmosphere track, yeah. So there's my track there. Kind of hear it. There we go. That's better. Let's say it's all the way up. And I move my knob. See how it jumped? Let's do it again. Wait, let me put my knob down here. See how it's jumping around? The reason why it's jumping is because I move my knob and it jumps to the position of the knob or the fader, whatever you're using, right? So none is not a great idea usually because that's going to make things jump, and you don't really want things to jump usually, especially on a stage. So I usually set it for pickup, and that's just a holdover because I started off using live on stage live. I didn't start off using live in the studio. I used it more on stage back in the day. Luna, come here. So I used it more on stage back in the day. So it's kind of a holdover for me for that because in the studio it doesn't really matter that much. But I do keep mine set to pickup mode. And then down here we have MIDI ports. These are really useful for showing what keyboard's actually connected right now and how you're using it. So we've got here different modes here: track, sync, and remote. All right, you want to go back down on the ground? Fine. Track is for your keys on the keyboard, right here, the keys on the keyboard. Sync is for if you have like a machine, like a drum machine or an MPC that you can start and stop. And remote is for these knobs right here. So that's what that is for. Now MPE is for if you have a controller that actually allows you to do individual notes and stuff. You can use MPE mode for that, but like this keyboard doesn't really do that kind of stuff. Next up for our preferences, we have here file and folder. Create analysis files, yes, you want to turn that on. Sample editor, you probably don't have one, so don't worry about it. Temporary folder, don't worry about it. Max application, if you have live suite, you're going to use this. If not, don't worry about it. I'm just going to use the bundled version. I don't have a separate Max application. The decoding cache is for if you're dragging MP3s into Ableton Live. Every now and then you might want to clean it up or whatever. It doesn't really affect things too much, although it is good to keep it cleaned up every now and then because you don't want it to get too big. The library here is, this part here just shows you where your library is. If you want to put your library on an external hard drive, you can do it. I keep my library on my internal hard drive even though it takes up a few gigs of space. The reason is because I like to make sure I have all the Ableton Live stuff in Ableton Live at the time. But I also don't download all the packs. I don't download the orchestral packs and the piano packs and all that stuff. What's going on down there? And then collect files on export. That's set to always. What that does is basically it means that whenever you save something or whatever, it's going to collect all the files into your library. I keep it set to never because I don't want it recopying all of my files. I just don't want to have that happen. So I keep that set to never. Show downloadable packs. That's a good idea to keep that turned on. Over here we've got our plugins. Now this is important. So Josh, I think, Josh, you were asking about that earlier. Somebody else is asking about that earlier. Oh yeah, Josh, it was you. Does Ableton allow the use of third-party plugins? The answer is absolutely yes. Here's how you set it up, is in this plugins area right here. So use audio units or use VST or VST 2 or 3 is set up here. You can turn these on if you want. I have just VST 2s. I don't use my VST 3s, and I use audio units. Although, if you're on a Mac, my recommendation is to use the audio units ones as much as possible. Don't use the VST ones. Use the audio unit ones as little as possible and use VSTs as much as possible. The VST 2s are very stable. Audio units do crash things more than VST 2. So I use VST 2. I do not use VST 3. Although some plugins moving into the future probably going to have to use VST 3, but right now I just use VST 2. I don't even know really what the difference is. I think there's differences. I mean, I know there's differences, but I don't really know what they are. And then you can set your folder here or whatever, your custom folder if you have a custom folder, or you can just use the system folder for that. So that is up to you. Pup, come here. Come here. Sorry, she keeps coming here and being under my legs, but then moving away. All right. So then down here where it says plugin windows, set yours up like mine are set up. Multiple plugin windows, auto hide the plugin windows, or auto open the plugin windows are set like this. I don't want mine to auto open mine anymore, and the reason why is because I'm using push, and I'm using push a lot more to open up things and make things happen. So I have it set to off. Auto hide is set to off as well because I don't want it to hide things when I move away from the track. I don't know. I'm always shifting how I use live depending on what I'm doing at the time. So I'm still kind of messing around with these and kind of deciding. But sometimes I change them, sometimes I don't. But recently I've turned this one off. I always have this one off, but I've recently turned this one off. But sometimes I think maybe I should keep them on just because I'm using the push more than I was, or I'm using it in a slightly different way. And then multiple plugin windows, I keep those on so I can have multiple windows up at the same time. Over here we got record, warp, and launch. The file type is the wave, the bit depth is 24, count in is set to none. Remember, count in, you can set that over in your metronome area. Exclusive, what this means is if I have it set to record arm, for example, is exclusive. Let me go ahead and set this up to various things. Captain. If I have these set to different things here, then what I can do is I can record arm this one. It's going to record arm, but when I hit record arm on a different one, it's going to turn off the record arm on the previous one. That is called exclusive here. And with solo, I have my solo turned off, and that means I can solo multiple tracks at the same time really easily without having to hit any keys on my keyboard. If you want to record our multiple tracks at the same time, you can hold down the command key. I find myself not having to record multiple audio tracks at the same time usually, because I don't do a lot of like drum recording and stuff. So I leave that turned on. But for my soloing, I keep that one turned off because I do like to solo multiple tracks at the same time. That's something I do quite often. Clip update rate, don't worry about it. Keep it set to 16. Record session automation in. I like to have mine set for all tracks. You can also have it set for armed tracks, but I find that for armed tracks, I don't know, I just don't like the way it works with armed tracks. I prefer the way it works in all tracks. And I suggest you play with that a little bit to see how you like it. Start playback with record. I keep this turned off. It is on by default. I keep it turned off because I do not like it to start with the record button. I like to set up my record button and then hit play. Warp fade. Short samples is auto. Auto warp long samples is turned to on. Default warp mode is set to beats. Create fades on clip edges. I turn that off because I don't like it. So I turn it off. I think it's better now than it used to be about how it accesses like kick drums and stuff like that, but I keep it off. Default launch mode is trigger. Default launch quantization is global. Select on launch off. Next scene on launch off. All this stuff off, 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 off. Tap tempo, I keep it on. Start playback with tap tempo, yeah, because if I'm going to tap in the tempo, I want it to start playing. And draw mode with pitch lock, what this does is when you're editing your MIDI, it's going to keep things locked to the same pitch. Not my favorite. In theory, I like it, but in practice, I didn't like it at all. And then our licenses over here is different stuff. So I've got everything authorized here, 11 beta with 2 add-ons authorized. I don't know what the 2 add-ons are. I thought I had everything authorized, and I probably do. But yeah, I'm not sure what those 2 add-ons are. So that's what's up. That's your preferences right there. Right, let me go ahead. Oops, not that, this.